like and subscribe button if you haven't already. The number one thing you can do to support the channel right now, if that's something you want to do, is hit subscribe and hit that like button. So anyway, please go ahead and do that if you hadn't already. So tonight, here in a little while, got some family coming over. We're gonna do a fish fry, and was kind of going through my freezer last night and realized I'm pretty low on fish. So I had to make a little grocery run to the neighborhood lake here, and I'm going to show you. You can do this at any lake. Some of them are easier to get in the good ones than others, but I'm going to show you what to do if you need to have a fish fry and you need to get some fish for it quick. We're going to be fishing for bluegills today, and it's one of the simplest, easiest things you can fish for. A lot of fun, a lot of fish. And it's just a great way to fish. An experienced guy like me, it's a good way to get a tug if you hadn't caught anything for a while. And especially if you're learning how to fish, if I was going to teach somebody how to fish, this is what we'd be doing. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you just the simplest, easiest way to get fish for a fish fry. Stick around. I'm going to start my bluegill quest with this fly rod now. This is an antique deal that I got at the thrift store, and it's supposed to be automatic, and I don't know if I broke it or if it's just jammed or what's going on with it exactly, but the automatic reel thing was working when I got it, and now it's not. So I'm not a fly fisherman, but I see a lot of bluegill feeding on the surface here, so I'm gonna try it and see what happens. I got this dude, Zebco Sport Fisher Series. Got this dude at the thrift store for like 15 bucks. So, we'll see if we can catch a fish on it. And if not, we got Old Reliable with us. That's right, we got the night crawlers. So we should be able to get some bluegills either way. Okay, so behind this little red boat is a good spot for bluegill, like 99% of the time. I'm not sure what it is about it, but I've caught plenty of them over here behind this boat in this little general area. I don't know if they're gonna feel like hitting the top water tonight, but we'll see. Maybe I should just put a plain hook and a worm on here. Oh, we missed him. Y'all see that? I've never caught a fish on a fly rod before, guys, so I'm just hoping to get... Oh, there we go. Ooh. It's definitely a panfish. It feels pretty decent on this rod. There was another one following him in. Alright guys, first fish ever on the fly rod. That is a hand-sized bluegill. And like I said, we got a fish fry tomorrow, so he's going in the cooler. Tell you what, I don't really know how fly line works. I know this stuff's pretty light. He put up a great fight on that. He ain't even all that big. Just gonna go ahead and let him go. So this is fun. I've never fly fished really ever in my life, so that's not entirely true. My grandpa had a cheap Walmart fly rod when I was a kid, and I kind of played with it a little bit, but never seriously tried fly fishing. And I'm not that I'm seriously trying it right now, but you know what I'm saying. another fish on the fly rod. Looks like another fairly decent sunfish. Oh yeah. Nice little hybrid, not too bad. Not quite as big as my hand, but he's definitely a good eater, so he goes in the cooler. But it is like I'll get the single most aggressive fish in that little spot, and then not get any more. Maybe that's just fly fishing, I don't know. Alright guys, it's time to get serious here. If you really want to have a fish fry in a hurry, get you some of these guys. Simplest fishing ever, ultralight rod. I'm breaking my no clip-on bobbers rule. I got this crusty old clip-on bobber I'm using because being lazy. I think that's a number 4 circle hook. Crawly boys. Get you just like a piece of a crawler, get it on that circle hook. You can use whatever hook. I like these circle hooks though. At first I didn't, but figuring them out a little bit and they're growing on me. Pretty sure this is a size 4, not 100% sure. What I like to do is just work my way down this bank, and I mean this will work any lake, doesn't have to be a private neighborhood lake, but I like to just work my way up already. Woo! He's pulling. Just work your way down the bank. Little worm under a bobber gets them every time. You can catch them on other stuff, but just can't beat the worm under the bobber. The reason I'm not using any weight under my bobber is because it gives it a real slow fall. And I think that slow fall makes a big difference on getting bites. So yeah, I'm getting to where I like these circle hooks for these bluegill, man. I usually use I used Aberdeen hooks and bait holders for them for the longest time, and man, I only had 1 or 2 hooks get swallowed since I kind of switched to these circle hooks and kind of got the hang of them. Now I think I just spooked every fish over there, so they're probably over here now. But like I said, we're grocery fishing tonight, so really anything edible is good. Just missed one. Let's try again. Make sure when you're doing this you have your drag set right, because you never know when a big old bass or catfish will come along and grab your worm. It's happened to me countless times while fishing for bluegill. It doesn't happen every time, but occasionally it does. And a lot of you probably didn't see it, but one of my earlier videos I caught an 8-pound channel cat on an ultralight rod with 4-pound tests. So definitely does happen, and you can catch them while you're doing this. It's just, if you have your drag set right, you can catch a big fish on light line. Alright, we got another one on finally. It's a good one too. Feels good anyway. Putting up a fight on this ultralight, that's for sure. Oh yeah, that's a dandy bluegill right there. Look at that circle hook right in the nostril, right where it's supposed to be. He's about the size of my hand, and that's about what we're after, so I'm gonna throw him in the cooler, keep on fishing. Alright, so when you're using a circle hook, you don't really want to set the hook like you would with a regular hook. It's more of like a just reel into it and get your line tight kind of thing. And when your line's like tight, you just kind of stop, and then the hook will bury itself. They can hook themselves sometimes, but that's kind of a myth about circle hooks. They don't necessarily just hook themselves every single time. I mean, they do have a higher likelihood, but I wouldn't quite say they're a magic hook where they hook themselves every time, because that is not the case. Alright, another fish on. Ooh, he's getting in that boat. That's a good one. That's a good one there. Feels like he's good anyway. Ooh, yep. Another dandy bluegill, another eater size. Like I said, you find the hole where the big ones want to hang out. You can catch them year after year, day after day, summer after summer usually. So I've already fished this lake pretty well and figured out a few of the spots they like, but I'm telling you, good bluegill, nice sized ones are good eating. Let's get him in the cooler. Another fish, guys. Feels like a pretty decent one. Oh, that was a bass. He come off. Was not really expecting a bass, but okay. I thought he was just a big bluegill. He wasn't that big of a bass, but you always have a chance. That's what I was saying earlier. You always have a chance of, I mean, yeah, sure, most of the time you'll hook into a bluegill fishing worms like this, but you never know, man. Just about anything that swims will eat a worm. There we go. I think that's just a bluegill. I did loosen my drag after that bass, but I think that's just a fatty bluegill. It's pulling hard for a bluegill though. Nuts, cuz he chonky. Alright guys, we are back at the house. I wound up catching quite a few bluegills. I didn't show them all, but it is pretty much the same thing on repeat over and over again. Like I said, you know, the best way to figure out where the big ones are at whatever lake you're at is to just get out and fish around in the shallows, and I almost want to say fish around the deeper shallows, because it seems like that's where the bigger ones hang out. Like for example, in my lake, if I want to get bait, I'll go fish 2, 3, 4 feet of water for them, and I'll get some smaller ones, and then I'll move over to, like I said, kind of a similar kind of spot. They like kind of a sandy, gravelly, rocky bottom where they can kind of dig their nest. They dig out like almost like a little bowl in the bottom of the lake, and that's where they put their nests. So they like two things: areas where the ground is suitable for that, and it can only be so deep like that because they got to have a certain amount of sunlight hitting the eggs for it to all go right. But the bigger ones seem to like to hit the water that's like as deep as they can be in, and the smaller ones tend to go up shallower, just in my experience. So anyway, all you got to do is just figure out kind of one of the banks they like to hang out on, and then just kind of work your way up and down it and see what you can figure out. So anyway, I'm going to show you how to clean these, and then I'll show you 2 different ways to fry them, and yeah, let's get to it. Alright, so this is something I wanted to show you guys real quick before I got started. It's kind of interesting to me. Now, these guys have been on ice overnight, so their colors are kind of faded, but I actually have 3 different kinds of fish here. This one on the left, this is just your average run-of-the-mill bluegill. You can see he's got a smallmouth, the obvious bluegill, orange patch here. When they're alive, they're darker green and will have kind of faint stripes here. And they always have like a little dark patch here and on the fins. This here on the right is a pretty good sized green sunfish. The main thing about the green sunfish is They're more aggressive than the bluegill, and look at that mouth. They've almost got like a bass-sized mouth, and they've got a similar temperament. They're pretty aggressive. They're also kind of a darker green. This is kind of less orange here, and they've got a lot more of these little green stripes on them. And the other thing about them is their fins. Their fins always have these orangish white markings on them, whereas the bluegill fins, they don't. And then this one here in the middle is actually a bluegill green sunfish hybrid, and you can kind of see it's still got the green sunfish mouth kind of, but it's not quite as big. And the gills are kind of blue, but they're more stripe patterned like the green sunfish, and they've got more of the green sunfish tail and coloration, but they're more of the bluegill body shape. You see how this one's kind of longer and skinnier, and then this one's more kind of a round shape. Anyway, just thought that was interesting. So if you watch my last video, this will be pretty familiar. It's a pretty similar process on these bluegill, but I go behind the head, and one of the differences is on the crappies it's kind of more of like this kind of thing. On the bluegills the meat starts like here, so what you can do is just kind of cut around the head like that. You do want to get behind this fin here, and don't cut towards yourself. I kind of need to sharpen my knife a little bit, but get right around in there like that, and then you just, just like before, flip them over. Kind of mangled that one a little bit. Flip it over, angle your knife kind of, I kind of like to get in there and twist like that, and it's mainly flat but just slightly twisted this way as well, and just work along that bone and really use that curve of that knife to your advantage. Oops, don't do that. And then you get something like that, and then once I get to this point, just like on the crappie, I'll go down and then just maybe back up one more time just to make sure I'm all the way cut in there, and then we'll go down through like that, just like so, and then we'll work our way back along there like so. Okay, so there's our first fillet. Same deal on the other side. Again, don't cut towards yourself. There we go, got that one a little better. And then on this side, I'll just kind of do the same little scoop deal like that, and then right in there, twist it down just a hair. Really using the curve of that blade to our advantage. There we go. Now we'll go like back up. Right out, right through there. Alright, there's fillet number 2. Alright, so I got my knife out to the 9 inches. If you just work with what you got, but I like to have the long knife for this. And just like before, hold it down with the spoon, keeping that knife like that, nice and more or less flat, but kind of tilted down like this. And the camera's in the way right now, but I typically will use the edge of my board as a guide. And sometimes that happens. If it does, it's no big deal. And so now we have our fillet. Now, just like with the crappie, now this one I left accidentally cut off a few ribs, so we'll get those ribs out. Okay. And if you have any little fins left, go ahead and get them off. Okay. And just like with the crappie, there's a little row of bones right here, and we're frying them, so I could probably get away with leaving them in, but we're gonna go ahead and take them out and just do a cut right here, another cut right here, and there we go. That little strip there is just got those bones in it. I don't know if you can see them. They're kind of sticking out there, there. Anyway, this piece of meat is now boneless. Now we just got to do that a bunch of more times and we'll have all of our fish cleaned. I'm going to clean the rest of these fish and we'll see you when we're ready to cook. Alright guys, so with our fish, I'm going to do some homemade potato chips. These are just potatoes I cut up super thin. That one's even a little thicker than it should be. About even more like that. It's like kind of more what I like. Anyway, we got our oil heating up over here, and guys, be extremely careful when frying outside. Do not overload your pan with oil. I mean, I've only got maybe an inch and a half deep in there, and that's all you need. I did have 2 pans. The reason this pan is gone is, well, I about burned my house down earlier. So yeah, this thing's done. I'm probably going to use a wok over there just because it's big and will hold some oil, but getting this hot for potatoes to do the potato chips. They do take a long time to cook, so I'm going to do them first. And yeah, letting it get hot. I'll probably try to keep it around 400 or so for the chips and 350 for the fish. Alright, so I got this oil hot. It's about somewhere around 300 or 400 degrees. I got the flame pretty small and just kind of let it slowly heat up. Something like this is really easy to get the oil just way too hot, way too fast, so I keep the flame as small as I can get away with. So when you put the potatoes in, you don't want to just dump them all at once because it'll all bubble up. You just want to put in a little bit at a time, and these will take probably, to get crunchy, these will probably take at least 30 minutes, maybe even longer. Alright, so here's what I got going here. Obviously fish is here, and then I got, this is some Andy's brand red Cajun dry batter, and then this is Louisiana beer batter mixed up with the good old Budweiser, and then this is just a little bit of the Louisiana beer batter that I set aside. So I'm going to do these 2 different ways, and to start, I like to, the pieces that are going to be beer battered, I like to get a good coating of the dry batter and let them just kind of hang out in it for a minute first. So I'm going to put all my fish pieces that are going to get the beer batter into the bag, and some of these chunks are actually largemouth bass. I caught one that swallowed it was gill hooked pretty bad and didn't make it, so I just went ahead and threw him in the bucket and gonna go ahead and eat them. Bass actually make pretty good fish and chips. Their meat's just about the right consistency for this beer batter, so it'll be good. But yeah, I get them all in here and just shake them up and get everything a good coating. Once they look like that, we'll set them on here, and I like to just let them kind of sit with that coating on them for a few minutes before I batter them and throw them in. Alright, so we're going to let these hang out for a minute. These ones, that we're going to do with the red Cajun, you can do it either way. You can put it on as you go, or just let it hang out for a minute. It don't matter. I'm going to probably go ahead and get it coated just so it's done, But yeah, you can do that. You can just throw these in and throw them straight in the fryer. They don't really need to sit that long. So, but if you do let them sit, it don't hurt anything. So make sure these fish are good and coated. All right, so now we're just going to cover them back up because they're going to be sitting outside for a minute just to keep bugs and stuff off of them. All right, we're gonna take the trash inside, and we'll see when the potatoes are closer to done. All right, guys, so this is about what your potato chips should look like when they're done. They're getting brown, but they're not burnt. That's really the important thing. You got to get them. There's a real fine line between them being done and crunchy and burnt, and it takes a while to get there, and after about 30 minutes you best to just start keeping an eye on them and stirring them up and getting the ones that aren't quite done where the heat is and the ones that are more done away from the heat. But that's more or less what I like to see right there. So yeah, got our bowl. Just going to give them the old dump. Like to hit it with a lot of pepper, seasoned salt, garlic powder, My dog, y'all, we're outside. He's outside. He likes to bark. Best to just let barking dogs bark, you know, unless they're inside or it's late. Give these a good shake up, good stir. All right, those came out pretty good. I'm gonna hit them with just a little bit more. Give them a good stir. Try to not break nothing more than you have to doing this. It's gonna be a lot of runs at the bottom, but hey, that's all right. All right, I'd say those are good. Now we're gonna fry these fish. All right, so we got our fish on the left, our oil on the right. What I'm gonna do here is crack another beer, first of all. I've got my beer batter mix from before. And so all you got to do, get your little bit of fish that's already been pre-coated with the dry batter. And you don't need very much. I like to let most of it drip off of there because otherwise it'll just float around in the pan. Then you just go like that. And we'll coat these pieces and put them in one at a time. And kind of keep an eye on them one at a time too, because the different thicknesses of each fish piece and the different, variations in batter thickness boil down to different variations in cooking time. And you just gotta kind of have to watch and pay attention. May have to cool this oil off a little bit. Something else, I always like to do a couple of test pieces first before really going ham, because if your oil's too hot and you just start throwing them in, you'll ruin the whole batch. And I've definitely done that more than once. So always get your test pieces first so you can get your temperature dialed in right. Well, you see this piece, that's already pretty crispy, but that's a thin little piece of bluegill, so it might be done. This thicker piece of bass, on the other hand, is going to take a little while longer. Okay, so this is still really too hot to touch, but I broke it open and you can see that little bluegill piece. It's already cooked all the way through, so that piece is done. And that tells me my batter is at I think it's a little on the hot side, but I think it's probably going to be all right. I might try to get it just a hair cooler before I put more thick pieces in. Yeah, you see this? This bass is not cooked all the way through because it's such a thick piece, but the breading on the outside is already kind of charred, so we're gonna have to put it back in just to, because it's too late at this point. We're gonna have to put this one back in for a little bit, and it looks like we're gonna be good to go ahead and do our thin pieces, but we're gonna want to try and cool the oil off a bit before we put our thicker pieces in. So and I did go ahead and turn the fire down some. As we cook a few more of these thin pieces, the oil should cool off a bit. And the reason you want it cooler is so that the breading on the outside cooks at the same speed as the fish on the inside. See, that's done now. And these thin little bluegill pieces cook so fast you can get away with hotter oil, but the thick pieces cook a little slower, so you got to have the oil cooler. You know, cooking the beer batter is kind of similar to cooking a funnel cake, if any of y'all ever did that. My very first job ever was a food guy at Worlds of Fun, which is our local Kansas City amusement park, and I had to make funnel cakes as part of that job. And this is kind of similar, you know, you get your batter over the fish. The only difference is there's fish in the middle, but you know, with a funnel cake, you make your batter there and there, and it's got to cook about halfway through, and then you got to flip it. So anyway, so yeah, the most important thing is getting the temperature dialed in right. Once the temperature is dialed in right, it's real easy to do. And this is canola oil I'm using for anybody that's wondering. Okay, so you can tell they're ready to flip. See how they're kind of starting to turn brown, but it's still white? That's when you flip them. If you need to cool your oil down, the fastest way to do that turn the flame down and just throw some stuff in it, because the water evaporating out of it actually takes a lot of the heat away. So that's what all the bubbles are, is it's water boiling out of whatever you're frying. It takes quite a bit of heat to boil off that water, so when you turn the flame down, if you throw some stuff in the fryer and cook a few things, it'll cool off your oil. I'm gonna go ahead and throw some thicker pieces in now. They're gonna take a little while longer, which is fine. Like I said, with this beer batter, the most important thing is to get your temperature dialed in right. Alright, so these are starting to look pretty good here. We got that nice golden brown color. And just to double check, let's get one of our thicker pieces here. Like, that's a good piece. And we'll just get it on here, and oh yeah, that's good and done. So the rest of them are done. They all went in about the same time. So this is the last of our beer batter. We're going to go ahead and pull these off. And then once I got my fried pieces out, there's one more thing I like to do. And that is, I've showed this before, but I'm showing it again. Gonna hit them with this fish fry seasoning from the Spice House. If you don't have this, you can use, all this is says salt, pepper, lemon peel, garlic, onion. So any kind of combination like that will be good. But I'll take it once it's done and just give it a good sprinkle on there, about like that. Alright, so now that that's done, we got our Andy's red Cajun batter here. And this stuff's a little different. We actually want to get the oil just slightly hotter. Not much, but just a little bit. Okay, so this stuff doesn't take as long to cook. You don't have to worry about getting the temperatures equalized enough. This stuff is easy. If it's your first time, I'm telling you, just get this dry batter. You won't be disappointed. This stuff is more forgiving than the beer batter. Your temperature doesn't have to be dialed in as perfect for the fish to still come out good. So we're gonna start throwing it in. You also don't have to worry about flipping it really. You can kind of just judge it based on color when it's done. Don't want to overfill your fryer either. It's kind of overfull now, but I'm an experienced fryer, so I can do that. Alright y'all, so that's about what they look like when they're done. So I'm going to go ahead and take these out, put the next batch in. And these ones, just like before, we're going to hit them with this. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and give it a try. A little piece of gill right here. Fresh caught. Fresh out of the fryer. Almost too hot to eat. Never frozen. Can't beat it. So, if you really want to have a fish fry or are in a time crunch because a fish fry is already planned and you don't have enough fish, bluegills are your answer. I honestly think they're better eaten than crappie. Not quite as good as walleye, but they're like number 2 or 3 on my list of eating fish. So one of my tops. If you haven't tried it, try it. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.